My name is Rob Earlham, Senior Developer Advocate at Sitecore, and this is the second video in a series introducing some of the key concepts for Sitecore Search. We recently implemented Sitecore Search on the Developer Portal, and this series is going to cover what we did in that project. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the initial domain configuration in the Sitecore Search backend. We're going to be taking a look at attribute definitions, feature configuration, and also global widget configuration. So let's dive in. So let's first talk about attribute configuration. The attribute list can be thought of as the master list of all fields that will be populated for each of the different index documents you end up indexing. Now, you might have different fields being populated depending on the source that they come from. For example, a video might have a different set of fields compared to a blog post. So this list here has to be thought of as the superset of all fields that you're going to be populating across all of your different index sources. You can also set a variety of values on each of the attributes, and we'll take a look at that shortly. For example, setting things like the data type of the attribute and also how it's going to be leveraged within the system. Next up, you have the different feature configurations. The first one of those is for faceting. Faceting, as can be seen in the image here, is how you allow your users to refine the search results that have been returned from their keyword searches to only documents where certain fields match certain values. For example, if you take a look in the image here, you can see we have a site name facet on the Developer Portal. This is one of the attributes that we configured, and it's been enabled for faceting. So this means that our end users can choose which sites they want to return search results from to help them get to the result they're after more quickly. In much a similar way, we have sorting enabled on the Developer Portal. Again, this is controlled by feature configuration in the search backend, and you have a few different options which we'll look at shortly. For example, you can have sorting powered by AI, or you can configure sorting based on attribute values. You can also combine these different approaches together to create composite sorting options. Textual relevance and suggestion blocks control what results are returned for a user's query. Suggestion blocks are used to control the extension terms that are returned, and textual relevance is used to control how the index documents are matched to the query. The screenshot here shows textual relevance configuration, and you can see that we've enabled searching against our body, name, tags, and description attributes. Now, once we've configured all of our features, we need to go into our global resources configuration, and this allows us to enable the features and values for features that we just configured. This is an important step because it allows us to control which feature settings are live in production. This means that I can test directly via the API, making sure everything's right before we push it out to our prod users. Okay, so let's take a look at how we've configured all of this for the Developer Portal. Okay, so I've loaded up the Sitecore Search backend, and this is commonly called the Customer Engagement Console, or CEC. And the first thing I'm going to do is hop over to our administration section. I'm going to hop over to my domain settings section, and then over to the attributes tab. And here you can see all the different attributes that we've configured for the Developer Portal. You can, for example, see things like the body attribute, which is what's used to store the entire contents of the index document we're storing. We have things like the content type, which is how we differentiate between videos, blog posts, articles, forum posts. We have things like an image URL, which can be used in the search results. We have the site name, which is how we store where that result has actually come from, because we index a lot of different sources on the Developer Portal. And there's heaps of other different fields which you can see here. If you look in the middle, you can also see we have the data type specified. The majority of ours are string type data sources, so we're getting the data from the index source and storing that value as it's returned to us. If you look over on the right, you can see a lot of different checkboxes there, and they control how these different attributes are used. So the first one, if we take a look at, is the required attribute. That means that every index document, regardless of the source it comes from, must have that field populated. Next is an interesting one, the returning API response checkbox. This controls what data gets sent down in the search results objects that we return out of search. An interesting one here is you'll see the body field at the top is excluded. That means that when I enter a search term on the Dev Portal, I can have my search query run against the body text, making sure I'm doing full text searches. But I don't return that full body text down in the search result. The reason for that is that some of those body fields can be enormous in size. So that would quickly bloat the size of the response message. So allowing you to control what's in the API response is a good way of you keeping that lean and helping to improve in performance. The next two checkboxes control how the attributes are used. So you can see we have faceting enabled on 3 different attributes of the Dev Portal. We have it enabled on the type, we have it enabled on the product, which is applicable to it, and we have it enabled on the site that it came from as well. If we hop over to the feature configuration tab, here we can see the different feature enablement sections we talked about. I'm going to hop straight into the faceting one. And you can see here we have those same 3 fields we specified before. What you can do here is add further values. So if I go and edit, we can see here our site name filter. It's implemented as an OR. So if you do multiple selections, it'll give you an OR query on those, not an AND query, which is good. You can see we specify the maximum amount of filter objects we want to come back. So this is handy if you end up with a lot of different possible values. You can limit it to the most frequent ones, helping to keep your UI look a little bit cleaner. We also have an ordering process here. So again, as I said, we're ordering them by the number of index documents that match that facet. Here's where we specify the different sort options that have been enabled for the developer portal. The first one you see is the suggested sort order. That's what we've called it. That's basically allowing the AI on the back end to go and make its best guess about what it thinks the documents that most match your search query are, and it'll put those to the top. So to do that, we've enabled algorithmic sorting here. In the next section, you can see that we've enabled attribute sorting, and we've used that to enable title ascending and title descending. But you can see here we have multiple attributes being considered here, and this is what I meant by composite attribute sorting. So the initial attribute we're using is the name field, because we want to sort by title ascending, and that's where that data comes from. We also have priority in here as well. Each of our different index sources is assigned an integer priority. We do that because this is a developer portal aimed at developers, but some of the other index resources may have more marketing or focused content. So in this way, we can bump developer focused content higher in the search results, as that's most likely more relevant to what our users are going to be searching for. The final thing we're going to take a look at here is the global resources we just talked about. To do that, I'm going to hop over to the global resources section, and we're going to load up the global widget first here. And if we go into the global widget settings, so I'm going to go and click on facet first. Here you can see the same 3 facets that we saw before, but this lets us do things like choose the order. So currently we have site name, then product, then type. If we wanted to move type to be the first facet available, we could bump that to the top, save it, and then that would rearrange the order in the API response. You can also configure the minimum coverage. So that means if you only have facets with 1 to 2 results, for example, you can filter those out to try and keep more meaningful results in your facets. We're not doing that currently, but you can set an overall minimum coverage across all your facets, or you can go and override that in each individual specific facet as well. Moving on, let's take a look at the sort order next. So here, for example, you can enable and disable different sorting that you've configured in your feature configuration. We've enabled all 3. It allows us to choose the default as well. That's always the top one selected here. But if you wanted to come up with a new sorting configuration, it allows you to go and configure that in your feature configuration, but you can leave it unchecked in here, meaning it's not returned out of the API, not available for front-end use. But you can still make direct API calls as a developer to go and test that yourself and see whether you're happy with the results before you push it out to your end users. The next one we're going to take a look at is textual relevance. So textual relevance controls which fields are being searched when I enter my search queries. You can see in our feature configuration, we actually have 4 enabled: the name and title, the description, the body, and the tags. We're not actually currently using the tags field yet, so we've excluded this from here. We're only actually sorting on the name, description, and the body weight. We also have a priority setting there. So if the text is matched in the title, that's top priority for us. Next most important is the description, and finally the body text below that. If we wanted to add tags into this, again, it's just a simple matter of dragging this up where we want it to be included in the relevance. Thanks for watching the second video in this Sitecore Search series. Stay tuned to the Discover Sitecore YouTube channel for future videos in this series.